This Dalvin Cook.
What's going on?
This philosophical, it's a great question because every time it feels like it's moving one way, it goes another way. And I know some things that I can say. I know some things I can't say.
Yeah.
And I believe some things that I don't know.
Okay.
But I believe them.
Let's hear it all.
I think that, I think that you have an analytics-driven GM who just can't justify paying Dalvin Cook $10.4 million.
Okay.
Can't do it.
I could see
Can't
that.
do it.
Right.
Now, there was a column in one of the Minnesota papers over the weekend. And anytime I see that, where the column is advocating for what would be the locally unpopular position, because the popular position is you keep Dalvin Cook. Find a way to keep Dalvin Cook. Fans of the team, that's one of the realities of having a great running back. The fans want to keep him. This column was pushing the idea that this is no different than the formula that Kevin O'Connell, when he was with the Rams, saw Sean McVay use. You move on from Todd Gurley, you focus on Cooper Kupp and your passing game and your quarterback, and you win a Super Bowl with Cam Akers or somebody else who isn't Todd Gurley and isn't getting a ton of money. So you've got at least one columnist in the Minneapolis area who is pushing the team's agenda here if this is where it's going to go. We got to move on from Dalvin Cook. And the other theory is that, and we talked about this, I think we texted about it, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, the idea that the Vikings are self-aware. They know they're not a Super Bowl contender, so why are we going to burn up $10 million in cap space on a running back when we can have somebody a lot cheaper do the job and we can use that money to keep Justin Jefferson around over the long haul? So that's the other reason, recognizing, you know what, this team isn't going to compete with the 49ers at the Eagles at the end of the day. We're still a work in progress. So why are we going to go with an icing on the cake expenditure when we're still trying to figure out how to bake the cake? I think that's part of this too.
Well, there's a lot there. I know we've hit on this a lot too. I think it's different than the Todd Gurley Rams situation, right? Right, where Todd Gurley was like, he had a degenerative knee.
His knee was shot.
It was shot. Exactly, right? So we knew, this wasn't even the same player. We're still talking about a guy that, like we've talked about, it's go-go gadget rocket burners, and he's up the sidelines for 80 yards. He's special that way. It does feel that way, that there's a little bit of a civil war, or call it what you may, in the building where, analytics really, like, if you're really doing things by the books, okay, it might make sense to get rid of Dalvin Cook. But I got to think there's still people in that building that have said the things I've said. And what we're talking about, wait, there's only a few guys in football you can give the ball like anywhere on the field and go, hey, he can score a touchdown, and we got one of them. And we're only going to save like $2 or $3 million if we get rid of him. So, and then I think there's that aspect. And then here's where I challenge that, like, you can't play the, we think we know how the league's going to shake out game too much here, right?
Correct.
That's where I don't get it. Like, okay, so now you're fortune tellers and you know the league. You were the number 3 seed in the number 3 seed in the NFC playoffs last year. The NFC is weak, right? The 49ers have 2 or 3 injuries. It's over. Okay, now maybe we're the second best team. I don't know. Dallas is in a year of we don't know what they might be. Okay. Oh, wait, now we're here down the home stretch. Oh, no, the Eagles lost a defensive end. The Eagles lost their starting tackle. Oh, the A.J. Brown hurt his ankle, and you're in the thick of things? And wouldn't you want Dalvin Cook there? I don't know. The door's kind of cracked for me a little bit there in the NFC for me to think, hey, we're just going to get rid of Dalvin Cook and plan for the future. I don't know. That's just my thought. Mike, I've kind of been saying that here, for the last few weeks.
As we talk this through, because I wonder whether and to what extent ownership has decided to weigh in on
that. Yeah, that's interesting too.
Okay,
right.
Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, we've hired you to bring an analytics-driven approach to this, but we still have to be mindful of the human element. We know what Dalvin Cook is capable of doing for this team. We saw it last year against the Bills. The long touchdown that made the impossible plausible, and then who would have ever thought? Even when he had that 80-yard touchdown run, I thought, well, okay, this
at least it'll be a game for a little bit.
Longer.
Right, yeah.
Right, but without that, they don't win that game. the game breaker against the Dolphins, where it was still in doubt, and Miami was trying to come back. Boom, he goes 50-plus yards to the house. It's over. The Colts, the screen pass, ties the game. I think more about this column from yesterday. And look, we know how the sausage gets made. I don't want to accuse anyone of, and I don't know what's proper or improper in a setting like this, but if you're a columnist for a major publication in the town where the team is, and the team is trying to get a version out there, trying to advocate plausibly with assistance from one of these columnists to make our case, when you think of that mindset, that maybe there is some disagreement within the Vikings, and somebody got to, and you know, I should know how to pronounce his last name by now. Where is it? Jim Souhan? Is it Jim Souhan? Souhan. Lengthy column explaining why the Vikings are right to move on from Dalvin Cook, minimizing and downplaying his impact on the team last year, which I think is a mistake. But I just think a lot of this was fashioned out of talking points from the team. It's inescapable.
I would bet.
When you've been doing this for 20-plus years, that every once in a while there's an item where the local columnist is doing a favor for the local team. Because there's a fine line between they and we when you're a columnist covering the local NFL team. And maybe he/we was doing the local team a favor with this.
I would think
it suggests that there's. It suggests that, because Chris, here's what I know. This was all moving toward a conclusion last week. When I wrote and said last week that Dalvin Cook could be traded by the end of the week, that wasn't something I pulled out of an orifice.
Sure.
That was something that I had been told, this is coming to an end this week.
Right.
And just go ahead and say it could happen. And then Friday comes along. It's like, something's going on here.
Somebody walked in the office and said, wait, are we really going to get get rid of the guy that's got 3 rockets up his ass and runs down the sidelines for 80-yard touchdowns?
So I feel like something's going on there.
Yeah.
Where they're either holding out hope for a trade, and as of last week, I thought a trade was possible, that there may be a team out there that would pay him the $10.4 million, even if it's restructured. And there's a contractual clause that gives the Vikings or whoever his team is to take that 10.4 and chop down the cap number by converting most of the money into a bonus. So I think a trade is still possible. Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, reported over the weekend that if he's cut, the Dolphins become a real possibility. But I don't think the Dolphins are going to pay him 10.4. That's where the Dolphins are an impediment. I think he's more likely to go to the team that pays him 10.4 than the Dolphins, if there's a team out there that would pay him 10.4. So I just think the Vikings are coming to the realization that if we do this, we may regret it.
Yes.
Not just by way of what it does to our team, but what it does by way of the highlights we're going to see every Sunday or Monday or Thursday or Saturday, depending upon which week it is, of Dalvin Cook doing the kind of stuff he did for us last year. And in comparison, we're going to look like idiots for letting this guy out of the building.
Agreed. I mean, let alone goes to Miami, goes to the AFC, they're going to have those ceilings. What if you don't trade him and it's somebody in the NFC? That's going to even be worse. You know, and who knows out there? He's the type of talent, the type of guy where a team looks at it and goes, hey, whoa, wait, we might have not been able to make this, but he's out there. We can figure out our books here and our salary cap, and we can add a little extra money for a guy that can score 70-yard touchdowns. I just don't know why. You know, I get it, but I don't get it. I don't think it's the time. The time is right to get rid of Dalvin Cook for what he is as a player, what he's making, the money you save on dead money and all of that, right? And then I look at it and go, hey, you know, I know we look at the Rams and Todd Gurley but hey, everybody, they would have rather had Todd Gurley healthy and just be able to still throw them screens for 80-yard touchdowns. So that's a tough formula. It's a tough formula. Wait, Dalvin Cook, even when we don't have a good offensive line in the run game like they didn't last year, I mean, your offensive line, you know, there's nothing special that way. Still runs for 1,000 yards, still averages almost 4.5 yards per carry, you know, can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then you got a passing game and a guy in Justin Jefferson who is the king of the 20 and 25-yard reception and the 15-yard reception. So backers and safeties are always worried about, whoa, we have to stop that area of the field. And then underneath is wide open for Dalvin Cook in the running game, screen game, and the short passing game. That's where the formula was for me would seem to fit for Kevin O'Connell. And I just wouldn't give up on it like we've been saying here. And I think you're feeling the same thing right now.
To the extent that analytics are driving this decision, Pete points out that Dalvin Cook had an NFL-high 62 carries last year that went for 0 or negative yards. And again, that's part of this effort to downplay Cook's impact on the team. And that's where analytics and eyeballs can differ.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You can bend and twist and devise any statistical formula you would like to just coldly and dispassionately assess a player's worth. Or you can watch the game.
Yeah, right. Or like a fact like that, I think works against them. You know, I've seen that out there, and I want to go, and he still had 1,000 yards? Like, what did you think? There was a hole there, and he just ran into someone's ass and went, oh, I went down. I'm blind. I missed the hole. Like, that is a team issue. It's not a Dalvin Cook issue. That props him up almost with that. You and I are watching those games always. I'm always keeping my eye on it because I want something bad to happen so I can yell at you. We didn't come away watching Viking games going, man, Dalvin Cook, he missed a lot of huge holes in the game the other day.
He's holding back.
Right.
He's really holding back.
So that's where it's like, it's when people try to say that, I'm like, that's insane. This is a special, special player still.
And it all comes back to, and I think they're repackaging this idea of just good enough is just good enough. Purple purgatory, as I coined it in recent years, where they were content to compete for a division title or a wild card berth. They're content to go one and done. We're not going to go all in and be aggressive and try to be great. We're content to be good. Now it's more along the lines of, we know what our limitations are. We know we're not great. We're not going to pretend to be great, so we're going to budget our dollars accordingly. Again, Dalvin Cook has become, based upon where he is contractually, a luxury we can no longer afford because we're not going to get the bang that we need for our buck because we're not really going to contend. We're not going to get past the 49ers. We're not going to get past the Eagles. We're not going to fool ourselves. But like you said, a lot of stuff can happen. Now, if you're in the AFC, I could advocate it.
Right.
In the NFC,
right.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
You won 13 games last year with a defense that was complete and total crap, and you still won 13 games. You got outscored by the opposition, and you still won 13 of those games. Your defense was horrible. You've got a great defensive coordinator now. It can't be worse than it was last year, and you believe your offense is going to be better. When I interviewed Kevin O'Connell a few weeks ago, I came away from it believing thoroughly their offense will be better this year than it was last year because it's year 2 of the system. And Kirk Cousins is more comfortable, and Justin Jefferson's more comfortable, and they're drafting players that they think are suited to it, like Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson will actually have an opportunity to get comfortable as opposed to just, we would trade from you and plugged you in. You had 10 catches right out of the gate. So they're going to be better offensively. They don't have to be much better defensively to make some noise. But if the Eagles regress at all, if the 49ers have injury issues like they always do, there is an opening there for somebody.
Right.
There's an opening for somebody. There's too much pressure on the Lions, way too much pressure on the Lions. There's an opening for somebody. Why would you sacrifice your opportunity to be somebody?
Yeah, I think that's the point we're talking about, right? I mean, we clearly look at there's a top 3, the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys, but the Vikings are clearly in that next mix there of teams with the Lions, the Seahawks, right? Yeah, sure, the Saints.
Who the hell's betting on the Saints?
I don't know. I'm guessing it's NFC South. It's Derek Carr. They had a top 5 defense last year, and I'm guessing that's adding to it there. But, nonetheless, the point is that you guys and your Minnesota Vikings are in that next tier right below those top 3. And like you're saying and we're saying here, it's just, it doesn't take much to maybe be, oh, wait, we are one of the top 3 now. Whoa, we are one of the top 2. Who's to say the 49ers don't come out of the gates and it's Sam Darnold and, they lose a few games with Sam Darnold and then Brock Purdy gets back and he's a little rusty and all of a sudden you're sitting there going, wait, we're the number 2 seed in the NFC right now. The 49ers, they've tripped over themselves here for some reason, whatever. Who's to say? That's where I would have a hard time, cutting ties with number 4 in Minnesota.
Something happened late last week, unless it was all just a big bluff to try to get Dalvin Cook to take less. And he called their bluff because he's not inclined to take a penny less. Unless that's what it was, something changed. because they were ready to move in a certain direction, and now they're not moving in that direction. And so, you know what? Even if they ultimately move on, at least it will be the product of pressing pause, thinking it through.
Sure.
Why are we rushing this?
Right.
Let's make sure that we have a full consensus, that we understand the pros, the cons, the pluses, the minuses, that we're making an informed, adult, reasoned decision on where this goes. And I can get behind keeping Dalvin Cook. I can get behind exercising their right to restructure the contract, turn that 10.4, the bulk of it, 90% of it, into a signing bonus, kicking cap dollars into future years. The cap's always going up, so that dollar means less in future years than it means this year. Kick those dollars into future years. You'll work it out later. You'll worry about it later. Try to hold a team together offensively. And that's the other side of it, too, before we move on. What impact does this have on the locker room? What message does it send when one of your leaders gets thrown overboard while he can still play at a high level? What does that tell the team? How do they react to that? See, these are things that don't show up. And I know that the analytics crowd says, oh, there's a formula for that. Bullshit, there's a formula for that. There's no formula for what impact the team's decision to remove one of the best players and one of the team leaders from the locker room is going to have on the rest of the players. There is no formula for that. No. There's no formula to let you crawl inside someone's soul and heart and understand how they're going to react and respond as a team, individually and as a team, to the removal of one of the team's leaders. There's no way to predict that. There's no chart. There's no stat that allows that to be predicted. And that's part of what the Vikings are dealing with as they try to make this decision about what to do with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of a formula about the locker room. Is there one actually out there? If there is, you're right. There's no way you can.
They always say, anytime you have somebody in the analytics crowd on the run, they say, I've got a formula for, oh, no, that takes it into account. The model takes that into account. Sure it does. How can you prove otherwise? Oh, the model takes it into account. It doesn't take that into account. Impact on the guys who are left behind. When management decides to sever ties with one of the best players on the team, who's one of the team leaders, there's no formula for that.
No, there's not, and it's the human element, like we discuss a lot. It's the human element, and just you're gonna have guys in the locker room go, just damn, that's how we're gonna treat a guy that's been a team guy, the best player on our team, right? In the big picture of things, that caliber of player making peanuts. And here we are. We're gonna just dangle him out there the whole offseason. It's one of those where, it's gonna make people in the locker room a little side-eyed towards the organization. Definitely. I don't know if it ruins the locker room, but if he gets back in there, it will be a big positive, and I think like an energy booster, where it's going to be like, oh man, they got you back, good. Oh, Dalvin Cook, he didn't take that team-friendly deal. He didn't let them screw him over and take less and do all that. He stood up to the team. I think it'll actually be an energy boost if they bring him back in the locker room in a lot of ways. But there's going to be some guys that feel disgruntled or a little bit annoyed with how he's treated.
And again, I think they're having. I don't know this, but the circumstances would suggest that they're really having a conversation, a discussion. Why rush it? Why rush it? When do we have to make this decision? We don't have to make it today. Let's not make it today. Let's see how this plays out. And I really think until not week one, but training camp, I think that's when you better have a plan, because if he shows up and says, I'm ready for practice and my shoulder's healed, and you put him out there and he potentially tears an ACL, you're on the hook for the $10.4 million. So I think you'd like to have a plan in place that you're going to execute by the start of training camp. Week one is when his salary becomes fully guaranteed, but I'd like to think they would exercise their right to restructure the deal and drop the cap number before we even get to the issue of his salary becoming fully guaranteed. So no rush now. Take some time. Make a good decision. Consider all of it, and ultimately don't make decisions because you think you're not good enough to contend. They are good enough to contend. Most of the teams in the NFC are good enough to contend if things fall their way. We know all the variables that can affect a game. Injuries, bad calls, good calls, fluky stuff. There's a much bigger cluster of teams that is in that, you know what? they get a few breaks, they could be the NFC champion than the AFC. Although, I misspoke. The bar is a lot lower for admission to that club in the NFC.
That's it.
There's a lot of teams that are in that conversation in the AFC, but they're all great teams.
Yeah.
In the NFC, there aren't many great teams, but there's a lot more teams that wouldn't be in the conversation in the AFC that are in the conversation in the NFC. So why do you want to surrender prematurely when things could go your way?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right there. And I wouldn't want to give up in the NFC for all the reasons we stated.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.